Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It's his newest novel, and I read it as soon as I can because, I placed a hold of it at the library, so I had to wait a couple weeks for it to get here. And it took me about 3 weeks to read it itself because I'm not the fastest reader, but here I am. I finally finished it. And I thought this was a really good book, if I'm being honest. I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan, well, that came out wrong. I like Stephen King, but I've only before this read Billy Summers. I just never really checked out his back catalog. I just kind of read the new books as they come out, unless they're like a sequel or something. Just because I like being in on the discussion. I like being in on the action. I think it's fun like that. So this was, I guess, my second Stephen King book I've read, and I enjoyed it. Though I will admit I found the first half to be significantly more interesting than the second half, I guess. I just really cared more about Charlie's home life than I did about the generic fantasy world because it is that, it's generic. Um, it just, I feel like I've seen the plot done a bunch of times before, and just because the book's meta about it doesn't mean that it's still not generic. But nonetheless, I did enjoy it. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't read the book, then go read the book, then watch this. So the book starts off with Charlie explaining his life and how his mom was killed in a car crash when he was 5, and his dad became an alcoholic. Though what I like about this book did was it kind of redeemed the dad. A lot of times alcoholics are seen as these like violently abusive, beyond redemption caricatures, and I think this did a very good job at saying, you could get better, you could be unalcoholicized. So I think that was really good. I know Stephen King himself was an alcoholic, so maybe he based that on himself, but who am I to say I'm not him? So, since Charlie prayed for his dad to be recovered, he now thinks he owes God this. I guess he owes God, like, him being a good person. So, he notices his neighbor injured in the yard, and he calls the ambulance, and then he watches over his German Shepherd. Everybody in the town thinks this German Shepherd is like this evil dog from Cujo, which is kind of weird because isn't Cujo a Stephen King book? So does that mean Stephen King exists inside of this book? That's some food for thought. Anyway, turns out the dog is a big old sweetie pie, just like my German Shepherd. Well, mine's a half German Shepherd, but point still stands. And Charlie and Radar, which is the dog, they develop this nice bond. And I just love the way that Stephen King makes it, because for anybody who has had a dog, you could just love it to bits. So I think Stephen King does a really good job at showing that, especially from a teenage boy's point of view. Because as a teenage boy who loves his dog, I think it's very relatable. So Charlie stays with them for a couple months, and then Radar slowly becomes more and more feeble and elderly and weaker, and Mr. Boditz, he gets a heart attack and dies. Rest in peace. But he leaves Charlie behind this message, secret message, telling him that he's actually like over 100 years old, and there's like inside of this shed a portal to another fantasy land. And this this caught me off guard because in the audiobook, that recorded message is narrated by Stephen King, which really caught me off guard, and I loved it. It was just so funny hearing it from his voice. And he's like, okay, listen, Charlie, you got to get a bunch of gold to pay the house taxes so they don't find the shed and exploit the secret world. Also, you got to put the radar on the sundial so he lives a couple more years. And Charlie's like, sounds good to me. So Charlie gets to this portal fantasy world which is called Empis, and he meets this family who will used to be like the royal family, but they've been disfigured and disabled by this evil flight killer. Like one of them, like can't heal, the other one can't smell, stuff like that. Um, though, if you're comparing it to the British royal family, so after like dozens of generations of incest, maybe that comes alike too. So anyway, Charlie is able to put Radar on the sundial, and Radar is back to his young, happy pup self. But unfortunately, Charlie's captured by the night soldiers, and he has to go to this underground prison and fight in a gladiator tournament, which is kind of cool. I think this part went on a little too long, in my opinion, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So Charlie learns that the Flight Killer is actually Lei's brother, so he's like one of the royals, and he became evil. And also his hair is turning from brown hair and brown eyes to blue eyes and blonde hair. So I guess he gets a little bit more attractive, and they say he's the prince who was promised, which is literally word for word the prophecy from A Song of Ice and Fire. And I know King makes a reference to A Song of Ice and Fire in this book, but just because you reference it doesn't mean it's also not ripping it off. So anyway, Charlie is able to survive the first round of the gladiator thing because he finds out the weakness of his opponent from another one of the fighters, and then the second round he's able to get all of them to team up and escape. So that's nice. So we find out that the flight killer was her brother, Eldon, and they were really close when they were little, but he was very deformed, and everybody bullied him. So sometime he found the deep well, which uh, he finds the Gog Magog inside, and he becomes the Gog Magog's evil puppet. So he curses Empis and the royal family because they mistreated him, so he mistreats them. Um, and everybody in the present time has to defeat him before the equinox happens and he could wreak havoc. So there's a little time limit. And Lei's like, but my brother would never do that. And Charlie's like, but he did. So they got to stop him. So they get all the townspeople together and they find the deep well and the flight killer. And Leia's like, you know what? You are my brother and you suck now. So she stabs him and he is killed. He's killed. And Charlie defeats Gog Magog by saying, you are Gog Magog, you shall not pass! Which defeats Gog Magog and they win happy ever after. I think this was a good ending, well, for this conflict, but I feel like it wasn't like a little bit anticlimactic in my opinion. I liked it because it showed the growth of Charlie, and to a lesser extent the actualization of Leia, but I just feel like it was solved a little too easily. But that's just me. Still, it was pretty good. So eventually, Charlie and Radar go back through the portal, and they meet Charlie's dad again. And Charlie's a little like mixed feelings on the royal family now, cause they are good people, but at the same time, if they didn't if they didn't bully the Flight King when he was little, then none of this would have ever happened. So he's not really like big with them now. But anyway, he goes back home, and his dad's like, "Where the fuck have you been?" And he's like, "It's okay, Dad. I'll show you this fantasy world before I board it up, just so you could believe me." And we find out that Charlie becomes like this teacher or something, and they'd all live several more years in happy ever after. So that's good. I was scared that the dad would turn into an alcoholic again after the son went missing, but thankfully that was not the case. Um, so what did I think of Fairy Tale? I thought it was a very good book. A little bit derivative of other fantasy books or portal fantasy books, and the plot of the fantasy world seemed very like stock, in my opinion, very stock, like recycled plot. But the characters are what makes up for it. You know, this is only my second Stephen King book that I've read, but I could still say with confidence he is very good at writing main characters. Main characters that you could relate to with flaws, but still you root for them. Just all around great character building. So overall, I'm gonna give this a B. Um, I don't know when the next time we read a Stephen King book is, but probably the next time he makes a new one. But the next book I'll be talking about on this channel is Dragon Quest by Anne McCaffrey. So expect that next week. And I'll also be making videos on House of the Dragon whenever I get around to watching another one of those. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this book down in the comments below. And until next time, peace.